And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back, Nerd Initiative. My name's Off the Cuff Tom. You know me as Nerd Initiative's pop culture connoisseur, but I'm also your resident Star Trek guy. You can check out all the great reviews we've done this season on our Nerd Initiative YouTube channel and all the other socials. Now, it's been a while since we've done a TV talk, so that means we're at another season finale. And with me today, I have with me, she is the Marchioness of Mayhem. She is the Queen of Mean. She is the better half of our Wrestling Night Live team. With me is the one and only Sami. What is going on, Sami? How are we doing today?
You know, fun fact, I have a lot of nicknames in this world, but not everyone knows that I am a huge Star Trek nerd. I shout out to Marty Stoke, Matt Martin. We used to work out after school, after high school. We would go to his house, we'd work out, and we'd have Next Generation on in the background. So we're totally nerds. So thanks for having
Wait,
me
wait,
on,
wait.
Tom.
There's a third one of us in the Nerd Initiative group.
I think he more just liked when his mom would just get us pizza and stuff like that, but he would have it on in
Okay.
the background. He would do it for me.
Okay, fair enough. And I gotta say, it is so nice because to finally find another Trekkie in our group, because everybody likes those movies and shows with the laser swords. So to finally find someone that likes to live long and prosper, I greatly appreciate it. And also joining us today, he's phoning in from quite a bit away. You might have seen him on a little channel called TrekCulture. With us is the one, the only, the fantastic host. Make sure to set your phasers to sexy for the Mr. Sean Ferrick. Sean, how are we doing today, sir?
I'm good. That was a heck of an intro. I'm good. Thank you very much. I'm like, oh no, what do I need to deliver to live up to that? Oh my. How are you both?
Well,
Thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure is all ours. Star Trek Strange New Worlds has really reinvented and, is trying to fill a particular space in Trek culture as it is. No nod to yours, but just, in general. What do we think so far of how the series has gone? And what, on top of it now, Sam, you've already mentioned your history with Trek. Sean, what about yours? We really don't know, when did you really start to get where you are now?
Well, in terms of what we do, like I'm with TrekCulture since just after Picard's first season. That had aired by the time I kind of joined the team. And then I sort of joined in stages. I joined as a writer and then ended up on camera after that because thankfully somebody rang in sick and they were like, haha, you're moving too slow. Get in front of that camera. And I've been doing it ever since. But I think it was exactly at the right time because like we all remember, even back before Discovery aired, 2016, back in the dark times where there was only the film, the film franchise was happening. And then suddenly we blinked and there was 97 new Star Trek shows. And you couldn't swing a cat for, kind of like, oh, we got a new one over here and a new one over here. And then they started to end, which was a bit worrying, but actually it's not worrying because it's only queuing up the next one. But Strange New Worlds has just, I think, arrived at exactly the right moment in this sort of madness of Star Trek.
Now, where does your particular Trek culture start at? Where did you start becoming a fan? When did you start watching it as a wee Sean?
It's my dad's fault. Dad decided that his 2-year-old son was going to be a Trekkie, and well, success story. Here we are 1 or 2 years later. So I mean, I can claim that. Sadly, I'm too young to have caught Encounter at Farpoint on first viewing, but I'm pretty sure I saw Best of Both Worlds, things like that. Because I was alive for Final Frontier, just to completely age myself immediately. And I remember my first Trek in the cinema, although no one was bringing me to see Final Frontier in the cinema, and they were right to do it. I was one. I would not have been good company in the cinema, and I sadly was still too young for Undiscovered Country as well. But I do remember going to see Generations with Dad in the cinema, and it isn't the worst film, but that could be the worst film, and I'd still love it because it was my first Trek experience in the cinema. Do you know what I mean?
I remember mine very specifically, and I remember begging my mom to take me. Star Trek V.
Nice. So I mean, you got the great barrier on screen. Sammy, what was your first Trek in the cinema?
I want to say it was First Contact. Yeah, I remember seeing First Contact. I might have gone to one, but I would have been so little before my dad might have dragged me. But I definitely remember seeing First Contact, and that was a lot of fun.
So on that note, I'm the old guy. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
But carrying it very well.
Well, yeah, sure. But yeah, for me, actually, I'm the oddball. No one in my family was a real Trekkie. So when TNG aired, I knew this was something special. I was aware of, TOS. I had obviously seen a few of the old episodes in syndication on my local Fox channel. But yeah, it's something clicked, and I hooked ever since. I've literally seen nearly almost every single episode since TNG aired.
Wow.
So, yeah. But yeah, we're not talking about TNG and all those other ones. We're talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3. So let's get this thing going. All right. Click that button. Click that button. All right. So Strange New Worlds Season 3. General non-spoiler review, in idea. One sentence. What do you got, Sammy?
Underperforming.
Even better,
I'll go
one
with
word. I
one
like
word.
it.
Underperforming.
See, it's just like Beyonce. Sammy, underperform. Sean, how about you?
Ups and downs.
Oh, shameless plug. Gotcha.
I couldn't. It was right there. It was right there.
Questionable is mine. I question a lot of the things that they did. So we're going to just jump through, talk about each episode, and then just BS and have fun along the way. So yeah, let's get this thing started. We're starting off with episode 1. All right, Hegemony season or Hegemony 2. We're literally jumping right in, and just in great Star Trek nature. It is literally, we end on a cliffhanger from season 2, and boom, we're right here. What do we think about this episode? The pacing, the whole dynamic of it. Was this too big to start off for a season premiere?
No, I would say not at all. I think this really worked really well. Star Trek has always been very, very famous since, TNG, not to keep talking about TNG, but, of doing these kind of cliffhanger moments and these multi-part episodes. This one worked really well, and it really started the season off really strongly.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree. I thought, it was through no fault of its own, there had been this 2-year gap. So it sort of needed to really kind of blast its way back into our homes, which I think it did. So it would have been good anyway if there'd been only the normal year gap between. But the extended gap was a bit like, okay, we really need you to deliver. And I'm pretty sure, I feel that it did. I thought it was a good season opener. I thought it set a tone for this. I won't say the tone because there's many tones in this season, but it set a tone for the season. And I think it's also a good episode of character moments.
Yes.
Nearly everyone kind of gets something to do.
I also think that one big thing that we got out of this was the whole idea with how the Gorn work as far as going into the binary star or whatever wormholes they were going. They did a great job of writing them out, because how many times have we seen the Gorn in future Trek since then? We've only gotten the one time with Kirk, and then has there really been anything else that I can recall?
Like, we had obviously Mirror Universe, but that's
Right.
Mirror Universe. And then we have in Prodigy, funnily enough. So Prodigy was set 2383-84. The Gorn turn up to help when the Living Construct does its thing. I won't say too much more just in case of spoilers, but there is Gorn ships that turn up in that. So they're around, they're out there. But yeah, overall, no, they're sort of gone there to the sideways. They've been kind of this presence in Trek without being in Trek for a long time.
And I just think that's smart writing, because one of the big things that I think can be an issue with Strange New Worlds is the fact that we are painted into a corner. There are certain things canon that still need to happen, and there's been things that we've taken the artistic, license on and have changed around, obviously, and to the naysayers, on you. We're in the modern century, man. Like, get over it. That's how I feel about it. But if that's your thing, that's your thing, and we still love you either way. But yeah, the whole idea of the one other thing that I also found interesting was, with Captain Patel having the Gorn eggs and then thinking, oh, well, let's use Una's blood randomly. I'm like, okay, we just had a whole tribunal thing. She was on the tribunal. What the heck? Like, you're really like pushing some lines here. What did you guys think about that?
I was actually okay with it. At sometimes in Star Trek, going all the way back to the original series, sometimes it's just a reasonable, simple solution. You don't really want to overthink it too much. I was totally okay with that.
I'm in a similar boat. I think, yeah, you're 100% yes. Ad Astra per Aspera did happen. There was a whole big thing. There's the ongoing sort of not problem, but the issue of genetic engineering with Star Trek. And every time you can't do that, but it's fine because it's Una, but it's fine because it's Bashir, but it's fine. It's this sort of an ongoing thing. But then also, if you've got a toolbox and there is a tool that will do the job, use the tool. Do you know what I mean? Not that poor Una's blood is just a tool, but it also sort of is in this episode.
Oh, I got a whole thing about Una this season, and it's just hilarious. We'll talk about that later because even the missus said, what's up with that? And you'll find out what we're talking about. But all in all, when it came to Hegemony Part 2, I gotta say, this was a great episode. I loved the hard part about it because, like you said, the 2-year gap in, also the gap that everybody's gotten a focus episode except for Vegas. The real gut punch or, right in the chest with Erica, I was, as they're flying back to the ship, I'm like, please don't die, please don't die, please don't die, please don't die, please don't die. That had me on the edge of my seat. How about for yous?
I thought maybe I don't know how much percentage wise, but I thought because she's one of the characters you could do that with. Like as this season in particular has really highlighted. Look, Spock's going to be fine. You might put him through the ringer, but he's going to be there at the end of the day. And you have that with Pike. You have that with Scotty. You don't have that with Ortegas, and you don't have that with La'an. And to a certain extent, you don't have that with Una. There's a certain extent because then there is expanded canon that might be like, I have something to say if they were to kill her off. So I did think that there was a chance. And then in my head going, when they were writing this, they didn't know there was going to be a 2-year gap. So I'm glad that 2 years ago they didn't write in a surprise death for Ortegas, because I think I would have been at the front of the riot if they had killed her off in that first episode.
Yep. But again, everything will come back all around, and I the whole hands like there's just a bunch of stuff. But then we follow up this big, huge, season premiere with a comedy episode with the Wedding Bell Blues. We finally get the introduction of Dr. Roger Corby, which is fantastic as far as Star Trek canon is concerned, because we do know that Nurse Chapel does end up with Dr. Corby. What a great actor. I mean, he's got this, I wouldn't say Indiana Jones thing 100% because he's no Harrison Ford. I loved Chapel and how uncomfortable she was, but on top of it, Spock just pining for her the whole time. Like, I think this is one of those great times when Ethan Peck really knew how to play his half Vulcan and half human side, because he didn't understand, like, yo, we're on a break. Well, did you break up with me? Did you not break up with me? What did you guys think? Just about the love relationship. We're not going to talk about everything else up here just yet.
All right. If we're going to just focus on the relationship dynamic, I did enjoy that very much. I thought, like you said, that Spock really was showing a lot of human emotions here while keeping his Vulcan side very, prominent front and center. And yeah, Chapel was on her toes. This was fun. That part was fun.
I got you a book.
I mean, it's funny because I'm predisposed to love Corby anyway. He's a fine Irishman. It's kind of hard not to.
I kind of threw that out for you.
Absolutely, so. Absolutely, yeah. And not only an Irishman, he's from Cork. Like he's good. He's good. He's a good man. In this episode, because we will come back to the topic of relationships and particularly Spock, but in this episode, I thought it was so funny. I thought it was balanced really well. I thought it was presented as the comedy we were meant to take it as. You know what I mean? Like it was light. It was not meant to be a serious episode. Some of the slapstick humor really worked for me. And I think aside from, they were like, they walked a fine line of, are we meant to like Christine in this season? Because they sort of present it, she could have called him. She could have said, Spock, just to give you a heads up, I'm bringing Corby with. But then again, on the flip side, she did say in Hegemony, don't wait for me. Don't pine for me. This is not what this means. So there's a kind of an argument either side. But I thought they all play the heck out of it. Jess Bush is great in this episode. Ethan Peck is particularly good in this episode. And yeah, I thought Killian O'Sullivan just came in and just slotted into the family really well as
Absolutely.
well. Because we're sort of meant to not like Corby, but then we do like Corby because he's actually a nice guy.
Mm-hmm. Now you queued up just perfectly the fact of this is a funny episode, because we finally get a Q, played by the great Rhys Darby. I mean, this guy has just been killing it for the past decade or whatnot. I mean, now since he's really shown up here on American screens. Sorry, but outside of his normal home base. I mean, this is a perfect episode. One, not to introduce Q to Strange New Worlds, but on top of it, the fact that it's a great handoff to from John Delancey to Rhys Darby. I think this is the perfect example of where the next step Q needs to be. I mean, look, Delancey's getting up there, and yes, we did write around it in Picard season 3. So, what were your thoughts on this? And Sean, you're definitely gonna have to fill me in on this one, because when it comes to me and reviewing and everything, I keep my head in the sand so much until the week of an episode, because I hate getting ahead. But where the heck did they confirm that, that Rhys Darby is Trelane, and Trelane, I obviously know Trelane is Q, but I never heard it specifically said in the episode.
So, and in all fairness to yourself, it is never said explicitly on screen. Mm-hmm. So what they're doing is that they're walking a fine line that if you are like many people in the audience and never watch a single thing outside of what we see on screen, he is a being with powers, and you can leave it at that. Now, if you're like me, then you're like, I consume all of the side stuff. I mean, I think within 2 days there was on StarTrek.com and on Star Trek, bringing Trelane back to Star Trek, and Akiva Goldsman confirmed that he was 100% playing Trelane. The jacket he's wearing, a fabulous jacket, is based on the original jacket that William Campbell wore in the Squire of Gothos, which they pulled out of storage. Bernadette Croft, who does the costumes for Strange New Worlds, just does an incredible design. So it's kind of on screen, really, the only thing that, confirms, for want of a better word, is Delancey vocals cameo there at the end. And you could go, listen, he's playing another character, and you could leave it at that. It's sort of, supplemental material. 100% he is Trelane. Trelane is Q Jr., and it ties... Does it maybe ties a little bit back into established Q lore?
Mm-hmm. Sammy, what did you think about this particular episode, especially with the twist at the end that we found out, that the bartender or wedding planner was a Q?
Thought it was a little lazy. And here's the thing: I love Q, and it's been a great part of Star Trek for decades now. But here's the opportunity to do something new, and we're just going back to something old. And while the episode worked, it was funny, it did serve a very important purpose to continue the story going forward. To me, it just came off kind of lazy. And we see that as the season goes on.
Mm-hmm. Now, as I made this little gag slide here, what do we think that Trelane is Junior from Voyager, or the Q just have a litter of little Qettes around?
Mr. QX.
We're making that that's going to be beta canon now. Thank you very much.
In my head canon, so this is just from watching Trek, there's nothing confirming this. In the episode Q2 of Voyager, about midway through the episode, Keegan Delancey says, "Oh, enough of this. Never mind, Aunt Kathy. I'm going off." And Delancey follows him. And the next time we see Delancey, he says, "It might have been minutes for you, but it's been years for us." So in theory, this and potentially the Squire of Gothos could fit in that segment there. Now, why Q changed his appearance? The first time we met Delancey, he was an Aldebaran serpent. Do you know what I mean? It's like, right, you can do whatever you want. You can play with it. So it's one of those ones, you don't overthink it. It could fit in there. And yeah, it's one of those ones. Nothing explicitly confirms that that's not true. It's one of those ones.
And on top of it, do the Q, we've been into the Q continuum. We've seen the road, in that particular Next Generation episode. And because of our, feeble human minds, Q do not always run linear as far as time is concerned. So could this be Junior from Voyager? Could it not? I personally, my headcanon, no. I like a little litter of Qets, and that's going to be my thing. Maybe that's osmosis. But yeah, following up with that, then we've had the big serious episode, the funny episode, and then we get space zombies with Shuttle to Confori. I was of two minds of this particular episode. I love the fact that we really got to see M'Benga and Pike really have that, and for lack of better words, military bond. I myself served, so I got something different out of it, because there is that particular brotherhood that you get out of it. And yes, using the episode as hey, here's a plot device so we can fix Batel of a flower. I'm like, okay, and I was even thinking, the Genesis and everything, we could work around that, but adding in M'Benga's backstory, with everything going on with Ambassador Dekra. How do we say it again?
Dekra, yeah.
Yeah. That for me was the lazy part. I think they wrote 85% of a great zombie episode and had to fill in the last 15%. What are your thoughts on, Shuttle to Confori?
Let you go first, Sean. I got a couple of thoughts on this.
I think, thank you. I think, so I'm a sucker for zombies and always have been. So I was kind of predisposed to be like, cool. Does the logic of the zombies work? Absolutely not. But I suppose you could say the same for however many zombie stories out there. So I am very forgiving when it comes to zombie logic. I really liked, to agree with you, Babs Olusomakan is great in this episode. And so is Anson Mount in one of the not very many chances he gets to play Pike in this series. And I thought he was specifically. And I thought he's very good in this as, obviously caring for Marie and caring for Joseph. And then also the, oh my God of it all. And also, I felt very smart that I got the Ken Foree reference and thought I was brilliant. Until I went online and realized everyone had got the Ken Foree reference, and I went, "Okay, great. Never mind." For me personally, they did not need to confirm what happened behind M'Benga's murder wall, and I think it was stronger without the confirmation. And I know they added that line at the end. You told a story to save my life, but I think for me, it's done. It's confirmed he did kill him. It was done in revenge, and it was in almost as many episodes. It was hand waved away because it was an off the books mission. And I thought, for me, their friendship didn't cover enough of we can just explain that away. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of, your chief of security acted in revenge while serving on a Starfleet vessel. I don't think you can hand wave this one away. And that, to me, kind of the end of the episode sort of let me down a little bit. But the end of the episode also contains one of my favorite scenes of the season, which is Una's dressing down of Ortegas. I thought that was great. That scene was really, really good. Because, again, one of the great examples of Rebecca Romaine in this season. And I think she has just been, I think one of the quiet strengths of season 3 has been Rebecca Romaine.
She fills the exact spot of what an executive officer should be. They are the backbone of the season, the series, of the ship itself, all in one. And yes, absolutely. Like I said, I served as well. And, you know, I had some fantastic officers and chiefs that I've worked under. And when I've needed to get, you know, the boot firmly placed, I have gotten it. But I'm going to, again, having that said, with your waving off of, oh, well, this happened, you know, with Manga, I believe that I've seen it happen way too many times to be like, yeah, that happens in real life.
Okay.
I think that's part of the problem that I had with it, though. I've seen it happen too many times in this season. So if you go back and if you watch, you know, when we're watching them in order and you're going through it, and it's like, okay, here's the second and now the third instance of, you know, just kind of throwing the rules away. And I get that's kind of always been a Star Trek trope. You know, you're out there in space, you're on your own, but I feel like as you kept going through the season, more and more things were just kind of dismissed, and it's like you can't dismiss everything, though.
Did you feel as well that this has been a funny season for, okay, this is pre-original series, right? Well, with a massive asterisk, by the way, behind that. But so this is
a little layover.
Yeah. So in the original series, it felt like the Wild West. It felt like you were kind of out there and sort of making it up as you went along, because they obviously were making it up as they went along. And how discipline was both there, and it looks different in the original series to the Next Generation, to whatever's going on in DS. I love DS9. DS9 is on a completely different form of discipline. It's like, how many war crimes will we commit this week?
It's almost a different show.
Like 100%. Yeah. And then in this one, they sort of play with, we're in the Wild West, but it's also, the Alpha Quadrant is tiny in Strange New Worlds. And there are 2 Starfleet vessels, the Enterprise and the Farragut. And they are always about 3 minutes away from each other. We'll get to it. So I thought it's a bit harder if it was in the original series and this had happened and there was hand waving. And I respect what you said, because obviously my experience, I've never served, so I don't have that experience. So if it was in the original series, I think I might have been slightly more forgiving. If we're out on the frontier, we are sort of writing the rule book as we go. Whereas the handicap, if you like, of Strange New Worlds is that it's sitting on 60 years of history, which is not its fault. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's just what happens when you make Star Trek today. But it's also sort of, I think, dancing over the line of where we are and what we know, and what are the rules and what aren't the rules, and what we can get with. It's kind of a bit of a muddled place in which it lives, which is what it was. So I kind of came out of this episode going like,
Yeah, and then the other thing is too, Bytha, the ambassador's daughter, did she make it to Stovacor? What do we think?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I would say in the long way round, yes, by sacrificing herself to save the other 2. I would say so. Just the ends justify the means. Yeah, I don't know about that.
She might have done a tour on the Barge of the Dead, but I think she got there.
I would say she at least did two turns on the barge. Very good reference. Excellent one. All right, then we go, and like you said, we have 60 years of backstory. So let's jump into a space adventure hour. Yeah, there are 2 episodes this season that are on the bottom of my list. This is one of them. Okay. I love the fact that we got in this particular episode this great history of, hey, let's introduce the holodeck in Strange New Worlds, because when we got it in TNG, we're like, oh, it's just there. Well, where did it come from? This is the part of Strange New Worlds that I absolutely love, where we're establishing the lore that we see further down the line. Spock or Spahn, whatever you want to call this love triangle relationship, and I say triangle because, we're also the third part being canon. What the man? I am just not a fan of this at all. But that's when it comes to having to always team up everybody with somebody else, and that's just me complaining about writing in general in the modern day. Space Adventure Hour. What did we think? I personally loved Paul Wesley's portrayal of Kirk, but more Bill Shatner as Kirk, of playing Kirk as Bill Shatner. I think he excelled in the Stardate 2079. It's great. It's fantastic. I mean, it was great, but it was just like so much cheese at the same time. And on top of it, the fact that they're using the new science set, I think this was just a reason just to pay off that up, having to build that set. And obviously we get it later, but they use that set way too much this season. It's like, oh, hey, astrometrics, let's go use that for every single thing here. So that's just my thought. Now, what did you think of this particular holodeck adventure for La'an? Ladies first.
The actual adventure itself, sure, yeah, that was fine, and it was fun, and it was cheesy. But why would you take a new piece of technology that's still in development and still being, worked on, and you would just build it on a starship? You wouldn't have it like on some sort of a Starfleet base somewhere. It's like, hey, we're developing new technology here. Fly over so you can help us test it because Scotty's an up and coming engineer who helped develop the part of the technology for it. Like, that's where it just didn't make sense to me. The story itself, they went in and okay, fine, that all worked, but I was completely thrown out of it. I'm like, who's developing this stuff and putting it on starships when it's not even ready? Like that doesn't seem smart at all, Starfleet.
Yeah, this should have totally been done in San Francisco, or at least on Starbase One, not in the Final Frontier. Sean, what do you think?
I mean, I agree. The logic doesn't logic to me. And there's some things. This was the first episode this season where I went, everyone making this is having the time of their lives.
Agreed, but
I'm not there with them. And I think this was the first one where I went, there's now a disconnect. Where, because I remember actually and a reason, I think it was actually at Vegas where Jonathan Frakes, who of course directs the episode, and we love Frakes, right? And Frakes it is now in Strange New Worlds because of his vocal cameo in this episode. So there's another Trek on the list from, and he was talking about how he had been very surprised by some of the less enthusiastic responses to this episode, and whether they were focused on the Paul Wesley Maxwell Saint scenes, particularly that last scene, that is kind of, he'd been quite surprised by that, and I think they had been, and this is where I started to get the feeling that this season was throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And it's a shame, because I don't want to say it's a terrible episode, because it isn't a terrible episode. It's there's lots to enjoy. The image you've picked there of Martin Quinn, I absolutely found that hilarious. I thought he was brilliant. I love Martin Quinn. He's a fantastic addition to the show. And not just as Scotty, Martin Quinn is great. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not just like, oh, I'm so happy Scotty's here. And I thought, the character on the holiday, they're having fun. Christina Chong is obviously having a ball in this episode as well. And I enjoyed a lot of it. I thought you probably could have honestly lifted, not to sound like a grump, you could have lifted the last Frontier segments and either had a gag where they, as their actor people, were watching that on the holodeck. I thought that would have been great. And then you could have all the bloopers and all that. And then sort of like La'an as Amelia and Spock do, when we get that Martin Quinn scene. So there was a little bit like that, you could shift it around or whichever. But this is the trailer came out, and we saw them standing on the black and yellow holodeck. Now, I am not slavish to canon. I'm really not. I have no problem. Introduce someone sooner or muck about. Just vaguely, just kind of say a little bit of, and that's why. Just a little bit. For example, we had that in Picard. We shifted things around. It's fine. But they had the black and yellow holodeck because that's what we know the holodeck looks like. So even though the rec room was on the Enterprise in the animated series, The Practical Joker, and it's just a box, audiences know that the holodeck looks like this, and that's why it looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was there's no reason given. And maybe it's because I live in the Star Trek encyclopedia. Like I need to go out and touch some grass. I know that. So maybe that's just me overthinking it and everything. But it's kind of like, yeah.
I agree. I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more of a prototype series thing. Like, give me just, mocap dots, or give me the black and yellows in a different pattern. Don't give me just the straight grid. Like, give me at a 45-degree angle. Just change it up just a little bit, and then, hey, we've went from here and we've gone to here, and that's why. And I agree. I'm not a complete slave to canon, but again, just make it make sense. That's my biggest thing. If you can write it in right, that's all I care about at the end of the day.
Yep.
And speaking about starting here and then ending there, let's talk about going through again, obviously the whole dance scene and everything, and how that's going on. What do we think about, we've talked about this a lot in all the groups online. Spock knows about the eugenics wars. Spock knows about Khan. And then, obviously we know ever since TNG, we've never heard nearly anything about World War III, the eugenics war, or anything in regards to that. Why do you think that they are shoehorning this in this relationship with La'an and Spock?
Someone needs to fill the role of Kirk of wanting to be with everyone.
Spock don't need to be no space hoe. It's illogical.
Could have fooled us.
I wonder if it's, and what are your opinion? I think Spock is a bit like Darth Vader. You know who Spock is. You know the image. You can put Spock in a lunchbox, and generally people will know Spock, live long and prosper, final frontier. They'll kind of get the gag.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's no problem leaning into that. Put Spock in more stories, but it's the one thing it's doing is that it's taking time away from other characters being developed. And then by having a relationship like this within the body's not cold between himself and Chapel, which that itself we have fun with where that fits in timelines, and not too stressed about that to a certain extent. But then it's exactly something like you said. Is Spock just the Kirk of this season? Like, we know from things like Enterprise, the Vulcans, they don't have to wait every 7 years. That's they've kind of done away with that, which is fine. But I don't know. It just kind of feels, someone said, and I don't know, maybe this is a very serious way of looking at it, but I think it is a valid read, that Spock has always been a sort of an icon either of his solitary status or there's sort of a queer icon there a little bit. And it seems like a conscious effort to really put him in a heteronormative relationship, because he is he's not the male lead, obviously that's Anson Mount, but they seem to be doing, we need to have a lead male who is in either romantic relationships where we can sort of touch on this. And I don't know, it just feels quite reductive. It feels unnecessary. And it feels like there's a sort of a lack of confidence in just having Spock be Spock. Be the scientist. Be on the bridge. Say this is illogical. I feel there's a little bit of a lack of confidence there, because I don't think Ethan Peck's performances would hurt in any way by having him do things that aren't just relationships.
Agreed. Not one bit at all. I think that this is obviously, like you said, we know where Spock goes, and I would absolutely say, we knew what we knew as far as his original wedding and chapel. You know what, that is a great point to add. He's that solitary, almost monk like that, that he did, and then obviously with unification and everything. So again, I think this is unnecessary. I mean, obviously, it's a bit of a plot device later down the road. But yeah, I just don't understand it. I don't get it. It's not that I'm not here for it. I like seeing how the characters develop, even if it's over a pair of socks. But is it necessary? I don't think so. Especially, we've only got, less than 20 episodes left. How do we tie this all up with a bow so it makes sense to the rest of canon? That's where my big concern is with this.
Yeah, for a show that's we're multiple seasons in now, and you have characters that have established histories, and you can add to that, you can enhance it, that's fine. But I've just been surprised overall the amount of, you know, focal point that Spock has played out through this entire series. When you have new characters that you can do kind of anything you want with them, Spock, you already know where he's going. Apparently he's going to become very boring when he teams up with Kirk on the Enterprise in comparison to how he is now, where he's a bit more of a party animal. And it's just weird when you could get him molding these other officers that we don't know anything about, or other parts of you could integrate him in the story that way. And obviously, yes, you could do the episodes where Spock gets to be the front and center, and that's fine. But it just seems odd to me that he has gotten as much attention as he has overall.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me, just really quickly on that, it reminds me, are you Doctor Who fans? So you might know where I'm going with this, is that the best stories overall in Doctor Who feature the Doctor. You run a risk when it's about the Doctor. And obviously there's great examples where it's been fantastic, right? But a big, massive special event was the Day of the Doctor, and about, the history of the Doctor and everything as a special event. And everything else, generally, not everything else, but, features the Doctor being the Doctor and being fabulous and running around all space and time, and it's brilliant and everything. But when it's all about Spock every week, and I know it's not every week, but, it's a bit like, oh, well, as you say, we don't have that many episodes left, and we didn't have that many to begin. And it's around this episode and episode 5, and I started to go, I don't think this show is Pike's show anymore.
I think that's a great example of a character they've used really well in terms of not putting them front and center. Using your Doctor Who reference, I think Pike has been great since the beginning of him being in the right moments, having enough screen time, but remembering that no, he's the captain. Everyone else is supposed to kind of be doing the work. So that works in terms of being an actual captain, and in terms of the show of like, yeah, Pike's in charge, but everyone else has to do the work.
I'll get on my whole Pike high horse. My Pike's Peak down at the end, because believe it or not, my wife and I had a wonderful conversation about the captains in general and what they all bring to the table. So we're going to put a pin in that and get back to it. But talking about Through the Lens of Time, the next episode, we were introduced to the new medical officer, Gamble. I loved Gamble, and then they did him dirty. I mean, so damn dirty. I thought Gamble was supposed to be us. He was the everyman. He was the fanboy. He was us on the ship doing the thing, doing the job. And then we get this complete 180. I thought this was a half and half episode for me. Like, it was a 50-50. I liked the idea of, when we went into the temple and everybody got split up and everything, I said, oh, this is a really good D&D campaign, because it'd be a great D&D campaign. And then introducing, the new creatures, Pelia, standout performance. This is where she started to shine in Trek, because for the rest of the season, I mean, Carol Kane is just a legend to begin with. But to see that this is something ancient, this is something evil, to see the fear in her eyes when it came to the Vesda, I liked the fact that, okay, cool, we did this, and then, oh, Gamble's dead, but there's a creature inside of him, and then Battelle just goes completely ape, which was totally out of left field, and again, plot device. What did we think about this episode? I think I just hit on all the points, but hopefully you guys have something else to add. That's the point of this.
I think they should have just put him in a red shirt. I think that would have been the even funnier nod to the original series. You know, you introduce the character, you start to like him, gone, bye bye.
Mm-hmm.
That would be gas. I liked that we got him. I liked that we got him a couple of times before this episode, so it did hit a little bit when he gets grim
Re-alived? I don't know.
Yeah. And I think overall, I thought this was one of the stronger episodes of the season. I like the mystery. As a D&D campaign, brilliant description. I actually peeked behind the curtain. I got the alien species completely wrong. The one, not the Vesda, but the other one. I was convinced in the ups and downs. I was there recording it, and I was like, oh yeah, the McCurtain, introduced in section 31 as the ones who built the doll that Garrett uses to create an explosion. I was absolutely convinced. I recorded it, sent it off to the editor. The editor went, "That's not the same alien race," and I went, bugger, you're right.
So my original theory, and if you check out our review, this was the only time this whole season I've done a red alert at the end. I thought that this was the yin and yang of things, the anti-progenitors. Because if you look at that temple with the whole idea of folding space-time and everything, really made me think of Discovery's finale of how they were able to use the windows through reality. So I was hoping that this was going to be a really good through line all the way out to the progenitors. Obviously, we were wrong. We've got this ancient evil, but that was just me on that one. My theory out the window.
I like Vadian 9, I think this is, and doesn't, whomever you want to call the character, doesn't Rhys Darby say he encountered Corby digging on the old home world, Vadian 9? Is this where the Q originated? And if it is, what does that do for canon? Because the Q have always existed. So yeah, or maybe he's not a Q and ignore everything I just said.
Exactly. It's an interesting episode. I liked the idea of where they were going, and again, it was just a setup episode for the rest of the season. Obviously, with Corby and Gamble, and obviously the Vesda. Again, with hiding them in the transporter, it's like, oh, wonder where Scotty learned that from. Oh, from Manga. We got a roundabout way for canon out of that. Has Scotty even said anything as far as that's concerned yet? Oh, well, yeah, that's how, because they use the emergency transporter that Mega's daughter was. So yeah, that's probably where he learned it from. Then, speaking of things going round and round, we're talking about the Salat who ate its tail. I think this was a standout episode. I loved Paul Wesley. And again, going back to my review, I said, people have complained that, this isn't Kirk. This isn't Bill Shatner. I was like, it's not. This is not Captain Kirk. This is, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, Kirk. And this is the prime example. I mean, this is, every good leader either, grows into it or they have it thrust upon them. This is the prime example of where Kirk starts to learn it from. And funny thing for myself, after watching this episode, I kept going back to listening to Subspace Rhapsody because of that one line, I have to give credit to you. And if I make captain, it'll be all because of you. And with the fact that he had so much of the Enterprise senior staff on, the Farragut with him, it just kept playing in my head over and over and over. By far, probably one of my best episodes because we got to see Kirk learning to be Kirk. And at the same time, the Enterprise trying to deal with, we're like really knocked out. And again, Pelia coming through and rewiring the ship. What do we think on this particular episode? Some highs and lows for us.
I found this I found it to kind of ride a wave. It started off very high, it trended low, and then it picked back up in the middle, and then finished off strongly enough. I didn't like seeing Kirk not be Kirk, because we've heard these great stories of Kirk when he was at the academy, of just being this cocky, arrogant, smart, calculating, captain-esque person, and then he gets into that first opportunity and he just kind of fumbles the ball, and that was really disappointing because when the episode's starting and he's talking about, having, different ideas than the captain and disagreeing with the captain, that's the Kirk I liked. But then when he's actually thrust into it, he doesn't know what to do with it. But we know, based upon his history, that he's been, a strong leadership type for his entire life. So it to me, it was one of those ones that kind of messed with canon, and I didn't really enjoy it.
Sean?
This on that one, I think this one chronologically comes after what we're told about in the episode Obsession, where the Farragut he believes he hesitates in firing, which leads to the death of the captain, who obviously Farragut goes through captains, and a lot of the crew. So I thought, sorry, overall, I really enjoyed this episode. There's bits that definitely kind of stick out for me, but overall, I really enjoyed it. So that, like, to me, is where we're having a bit of. There's nothing addressed about that in the episode, so is that just my own knowledge I'm bringing in that maybe colors a bit of the scenes here? And I did think that the crew went pretty quickly to mutiny. Now that seems to be a theme in Strange New Worlds, but that's fine. It's like, oh, it's Tuesday. We haven't stolen the ship in a few days, actually. And like fun bits like that. Of course, I have to hold my hands up and say that, we have TrekCulture, we have Who culture, and I didn't see the TARDIS. So, kind of hands up there. I have no defense. I didn't see it. I also didn't. York Hillebrand, who does the Easter eggs, all the incredible breaking down of every episode. I mean, like, I thought I was trying to go through the debris field and everything. Klingon bird of prey is in there. I didn't see the Romulan bird of prey. I did see the Vulcan ring ship. I mean, it's just like, oh my god. So I love gags like that, and also the fact that kind of, is that the ring ship at the end? Like, so things like that, great for, like, little Easter eggs. I really liked the ending. I thought the ending was quite Star Trek, not the destruction, but I didn't see them as basically as people. I saw them as my enemy, and that's very Star Trek. We've seen ideas like that done in a few different ways over the years. And the reminder that even in the heat of battle, and even you have to make split-second decisions, don't lose sight of the fact that you are facing people. Now, they might be Klingon, they might be Romulan, they might be Gorn, but they're people. And don't lose sight of that. And I think that is a crucial lesson a captain has to learn. So this was good. And also, did anyone else have that feeling in the beginning of the episode? It was just like, oh, don't tell me a remake in Doomsday Machine. Please don't tell me a remake. And they didn't. And I was like, oh, okay, brilliant. Nope, I'm good. I'm good with that. That's fine.
I liked the idea that, this was the old space explorers that, got stuck and stranded out there. What really makes me wonder is, like, how in just, those decades that they went from point A to point B. And I will say, hey, IDW, all right, you want a good idea other than, some other books? Add that book in. I would love to see a mini series. Give me 5 issues of how we went from point A to point B with the ship, and how it turned from we're the best of our best to hey, we're just going to steal everybody. That's just me. Following that up, we go back to having a little bit of a camp episode. We had, Spock really involved with, with the Saladin tail, but then, before we get to Spock, we have what is Starfleet. For me, this was the hardest episode, because like I've said, and Sean, I think I mentioned to you, this started off as a documentary and ended up as a Doctor Who episode. Obviously we had the TARDIS in the last episode, but this one I honestly watched 3 or 4 times before I could even get to my review. I understand where Beto was coming from and how, he missed his sister, but just the shock Vice documentary style that he was trying to go on this really, really put me off. And I guess it does come from my background. You know, I'll give you a little instance. When I was learning certain things, when I was in the military, we had books and books and books on everybody else's stuff. When it came to one of our things, we literally had a thing. This is how you identify it. This is one of ours. Thank you very much. So when you started seeing, you know, the whole history and the records, especially when it came to Manga and, you know, what the payload of the Enterprise is, I'm like, dude, not cool. But the payoff that we did get at the end, you know, like I said, with the creature sacrificing himself, I was all about it. But it was really just, this was an off-putting episode for me.
To me, this is a sci-fi trope and just a good, fiction trope where you do these type of episodes where everyone has to kind of question everything and even done in this manner where you have it done in a news journalistic kind of way. I just don't think they did it better or any real aspects of it better than anyone else has. I look to me personally, my gold standard for this type of episode would be Stargate Heroes, and this doesn't get anywhere close to that.
I think this was this episode was a strange experience to me because and sort of both in the first watch of it and in the reaction to our review, because I mean we know watch this. I'm much more. There's generally much more ups than downs. It's just that's the kind of people we are. We come at everything. Everything starts at 100. You know, we don't start at 0 and try and give marks. Everything starts at 100. We assume it's the best episode, and we go through and we enjoy, which has always been the case. And there was just things that hurt this one from the jump. That really made it hard to enjoy this episode. So we open with that title card that says, you know, this has all been declassified under effectively the Freedom of Information Act.
Right.
And so we are set up to believe that we are watching the edited, completed documentary made by Beto Ortegas and presented to Starfleet. And so if nothing else, he's not a documentarian and doesn't know how to make a documentary. And you know, like if you think, and actually this is something I phrased a little bit badly in our review, that I was saying, like, look, it doesn't look like he's made a documentary. It looks like they filmed an episode of Strange New Worlds and slapped a filter on it. And people said, oh, well, you know, cameras will be better in the future. And I was like, so sorry, that's I was not phrasing that properly. What I meant by that is it doesn't feel like he assembled a documentary. It feels like we're just a fly on the wall for an episode of Strange New Worlds. There's no feeling of being on the ground. There is no feeling of you know, handcraft. That was it. It was, and credit to Chris, our editor, for that one. So it wasn't, I kept saying handheld. So it didn't feel handheld, but it didn't feel handcrafted. It felt like a standard episode of Strange New Worlds with a little bit of a different bit here or there. You've got that opening credit title thing. And then, of course, now it's not a documentary about what is Starfleet at all. It's a documentary about Beto Ortegas expressing his inner demons. And okay, I've no problem with that. But then also, that's the finished documentary he gave to Starfleet, which means, sorry, first-year documentarian student, you failed. So that's another thing as well. So then they're frustrating. So that's just things like that. And then you have the strange use of the characters. Some great.
Thank you.
Just like, but I mean, the revelation that Spock gives actually gets worse with the following episode, but it's pretty dark in this one, about like cutting out the human half of himself, and it's just sort of dropped in there. Uhura should be immediately pulled up on a court-martial for knowing Beto is building a hit piece and seemingly never says a word to Pike. So as presented, that scene is quite strange. And actually, I think Lan comes across quite well. Chapel, they decided, doesn't need to be interviewed. So, and then this sort of, we're doing the Mbenga thing again. We're doing that's the Butcher of Jagal again, and it's the Redacted again. Some was great. I don't recall. That was great again. Babs is great, but again, that was just odd. And I sort of liked what they did with Una. That she was the only one who seemingly didn't get a solo interview. She was there with Pike, and again, it ties back into she is Pike's right hand. She is effectively the pillar holding up this ship, and you're not meant to like Pike in how he's presented, but I do also appreciate that is obviously deliberate, and that we're not party to what Pike hears, and we don't know what's going on. And then, of course, you have the other thing, which is the real world association, which, to be very fair, we do not know was ever part of the script. Because we don't know when this was written. We don't know exactly what this is about, but it's a bit hard not to tie the events of this into what we know is happening in the world at the moment.
Are you saying that science fiction is an allegory for real life?
I'd perish the thought. I would never suggest such a thing. Not at all.
Oh goodness.
Not at all. And this is where I think, and again, everyone completely disagree with me. I've no problem. I've no problem with people think I'm so wrong with this. That's great. As presented, the Jikaru wants to die. Okay, so we're just not going to try and help. We're not going to do anything at all. No, because Mbenga says I can't do anything. Sorry, this is Star Trek. Of course you can do something. This is an episode that the shorter runtime really hurt this episode.
Yep.
This is 40 minutes as opposed to, I think the next shortest is 50. So I don't know whether it was I genuinely don't know whether it was a budget decision. We're saving money for the rest of the season. I don't know whether there's stuff left on the cutting room floor that was meant to be part of this episode that maybe when they assembled it, they went, actually, I think we have our story in 40 minutes, which I would disagree. I don't think that it's there. And it was a very frustrating, and remains a very frustrating experience. Sami, I realize I'm monologuing. I apologize. Sami, I completely agree. Heroes, I think not only is that the stronger example, but I also think it's a better format. Don't show us a fully finished, assembled documentary. Show us Beto putting it together.
Well, and it had stakes. It's had stakes as well. Whereas we've seen once again, here's another episode where we're rehashing things that people didn't get punished for, and we know they're not going to get punished for it now either. So, like, what's the point?
Yeah. One thing that really got me in the canon was the fact, okay, Spock was able to sense, the Jikaru, but where the heck out of left field did, hey, it transferred a little bit over to me, Uhura, and we're just going to go off with that. I'm like, yeah, okay. Again, I think, like you said, we're just putting Spock into, fill gaps. He doesn't have to be the Deus Ex Machina of every episode. Your points your ears don't fit in every single little point.
That's it. Like anything, surely there was, a xenobiologist, would have been, it's frustrating. And this episode, I think, was, I'm trying to think the best way to describe it, because again, it's not a 0 out of 10. There's bits in it that I liked. Do you know what I mean? There's no episode is a 0 out of 10. One episode is close. Well, okay. 2 episodes are close, but okay, this is a low scoring episode. But I think rather than suffering from agenda, this suffers from a lack of direction. They didn't really know where they were going with this. The gag, even though it's not funny, there's nothing funny about this episode. This is the gag is you're watching a documentary. Why? I'll explain later. Okay, here's the documentary. And that to me, I think it hurts it overall. But I don't want them not to try these things. I really don't. I like trying new things, and you have to try new things in a franchise that's as old as this one, because we've done so many things. You have to do something we haven't seen before. I think this was a miss. I would like to see another shout at a documentary style episode.
So outside of that, you know, when it comes down to the gags and them trying new things, you know, they try something as far as introducing other Vulcans later in the series, especially ones with Earth type names. So let's talk about 4.5 Vulcans. You know, we've got Doug. All right. Shout out to Patton Oswalt. This was a great episode. But again, for me, this was a weak episode. I think that, you know, we've had so many great episodes where we've seen our bridge crew cosmetically, you know, go in undercover and, you know, do a bunch of things. As far as pushing this whole genetic aspect and, you know, assuming a lot of these qualities, to me, this was kind of like Tuvix minus. You know, it's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to die. But at the same time, did you handle it well enough? You know, this could have been a great episode to develop Spock even further. I think the whole idea of putting Una in as just having this, you know, just primordial when it came to Doug was just hilarious. You know, just the want to, it's Patton Oswalt. I mean, I can't blame her, but still, just there were so many ups and downs for me. For me, again, this came out to like a 50-50. Again, I think that, you know, again, having Beto in there and Uhura, you know, using a mind meld. I'm like, you just turned Vulcan. You should not be doing this. You need to be trained to do this. That was a big, huge oops. Pike playing off on the smell of humans, like that was great. You know, that's again just the whole wonderful part of the Star Trek canon. Chapel finally getting a peek behind the Vulcan veil of who Spock is definitely pushes the story there. And on top of it, you know, it helps with the bromance of how she breaks up with everybody. And even Spock and Corby go, yo, what happened? But La'an, again, going back to La'an, I was happy with this episode. I liked how they kind of summed it up. I think that using her augment DNA was kind of a throwaway. You know, let's be honest. Romulans and Vulcans are different. How? Exactly. You don't need to use the Vulcan, the augment DNA to justify it. Just that, you know, oh, just say your augment DNA unlocked the Romulan side or the this, that, or the other thing, or the old untrained side of Vulcanism. Or, you know, I'm going to make up another word right there. Yeah, you know, I like the fact that also Scotty and Kirk finally started to see their relationship developing. Like they have succeeded in some things as far as Strange New Worlds up to the first 3 seasons of putting those breadcrumbs into Kirk's, you know, enterprise. All in all, you know, I loved also Pelly. The time I tried LSD back in the 80s, and you know, Carol Kane again. She just has a standout in every single episode, and that's just credit to her. What did we think of on this one? I'm sorry, I soapbox there for a second on that. This because, like I said, I think that this had the potential, and I think they went more for the gag than the character development. And again, I know we said that, you know, it's over Spocking the season, but I think this is where Spock could have had his really big standout.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think this would have worked better if you had played it more into, it's like, okay, they have Vulcan DNA, but they still have like human minds, and that's why they're struggling. I don't think they did enough of that. The fact that we did 4 characters, I think, might have been too much. And you're right, there was a lot of attempt at, you know, comedy and humor here, and not a lot of jokes hit. I think I think they thought this would be like a home run episode, and it's really maybe a double if you're lucky. Sorry, Sean, I don't know if you know American baseball at all.
That's the one with the hoops, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're putting us in a sticky wicket right now, Sean.
Hey.
You know, another one is I honestly thought, and I didn't put this in my review, it was Coneheads in Star Trek. We come from France. Great. Okay.
this is an episode where I've already talked a lot about this episode, and I kind of, and my first what the hell reaction, because obviously they're done quite soon after the episode, was very blunt, and then ups and downs. I went, right, okay, hang on, I'm going to park the joke of them, we're Vulcans. If I'm going to put that aside and go, did I like the performances? And a lot of the performances are quite funny. I thought, again, you can see they're having a ball. You know, Christina Chong is having a ball playing a Romulan. Romulan. Thank you. Thank you very much. And look, funny enough, I really pretty much everything Chapel related in this episode. I thought, that's funny. And that to me felt the closest to what I would assume Chapel as if Chapel was Vulcan, what I assume that would be like. So I enjoyed that. Sadly, I think the direction they went with Anson Mount's journey was don't take a single second of this seriously. This is the guy, this is the Conehead, this is the gag, and we're going to shout everything and and then you have Uhura's thing where yes, obviously they do a bit of hand waving of because of the serum they have Spock's level of Vulcan. And then suddenly Uhura can do mind melds, and then you have an entire question of, all right, technically Beto consented, but that's an uncomfortable association there, and I don't think it was handled well. The other thing, and I promise I'm not going to go on for half an hour about this like I did for every other episode. This episode is racist as hell, and it's bad, and it deserves to feel bad. The problem with this episode, to me, is, do you remember 7 minutes ago when we were talking about how Spock revealed that as a child, he self-harmed to cut the human part of himself out of himself? Mm-hmm. Next week, do you know what would be really funny? Let's have a bunch of Vulcans say he is less than. And he doesn't count. And he is not him. He is not one of us. And it is horrific, the implications. And I've seen so much hurt come out of this episode because, and this is again using Spock, who is a character we have known since 1964, if we're talking the Cage, but at least 1966, we know Spock, the world knows Spock. So whether he's being handled well or badly, there's a sort of a protectiveness to Spock as well. Everyone has something they identify with in Spock. And this is, for the sake of the gag, horrible. Yep. What they do to him in this episode. And I am absolutely not, I'm not saying there was intent there. In fact, I think we can safely say there wasn't any intent to do something horrible here. And just as presented, it's just awful. It's awful. Again, 1 week after we've learned that he used a knife to try and cut the human side out of him. And then, I kind of are going to go, it's just indefensible, to be honest. It really is. And it's done so that we can have a laugh. It's done so that we can, this is funny. Let's point and laugh at the funny thing. And it hurts. And even now I'm oscillating about it because, again, performances made me laugh. And I smiled through some of it, particularly a lot of none of Christina Chong's bit makes any sense, but I thought it was funny, and I thought I actually thought, yes, there's 2 ships in Starfleet and they're always side by side. And here's Kirk. And okay. But I thought Paul Wesley's very good in this. And I really liked him and Martin Quinn. I thought they were fun together. Scotty, why on earth do you have a pad full of sensitive information in the bar? But you can kind of laugh at these kind of things as well. But then also, and again, Sean, you're taking this all very seriously, this connection to eugenics. La'an has dirty blood, which results in her being Romulan. And I thought, what a horrible idea. To put that into this episode. You have this augmented DNA, and because of that, you're not like everyone else, and you're bad. And it's played for a gag, because the funny gag of let's have one of them be Romulan. Actually, I would have preferred it to be Pike. I would have preferred it to be Chapel. Something like that. But no. It's because of your augmented DNA. It's because of something you have no control over. You are the bad guy. And then, of course, we're going to play that up and everything. And I thought, oh, my God. all of this to say, I can imagine when they were doing this season, they went, right, what about an episode where we have some Vulcans? Brilliant, cool. Let's have a bit of a laugh and we'll play the comedy and we'll do SNL sketch. That's what this will be. It'll be funny. And then all the Patton Oswalt stuff I thought was very, very funny because he is a full Vulcan who's obsessed with human culture. I thought, great. I like the gag. Doug, really, really funny. And I liked his scenes with Ethan Peck and the post-credits gag. I thought, yeah, brilliant, cool. That was funny to me. Because you also have in everything else a full Vulcan being fascinated by Spock's half-human side. I thought, what a funny lead with that, you know. Stepping off my soapbox, I did not care for this episode.
So I've got one for your cetacean observation, Sean, that you guys missed.
Ooh, go for it.
Beginning of the episode, Ortega said that they were going to go down to Permanti 3, right?
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this. Continue your point.
It's about a sandwich.
And there might, in fact, be an insert in our ups and downs video where I talk about, I believe this is a sandwich.
Yes, it is. So based in Pittsburgh, there is a chain, family-owned chain called Permanti Brothers, where they are famous for putting the French fries in the sandwich. So as an American who's also originally a Pennsylvanian, where Pittsburgh is, I will confirm for you. I did try to look up to see if anybody of the writing staff or whatnot was from Pittsburgh. I could not find anything. I just wanted to, shore that one up for you.
I think, Joe, you're dead right. It was funny. I'm laughing as well because, like, there's definitely, I can tell you, this episode showed there are fans from Pittsburgh of Star Trek because I have DMs. Have you heard of it? I had not. I had heard of a Chip Buddy, but
exactly,
a specific one. Aha! Mm-hmm. And now I really want one, and I have wanted one since watching this episode.
I'll send you a recipe on how to make one.
Thank you.
Get it taken care of. So after 4.5 Vulcans, we finally get what we've been waiting for 3 whole freaking seasons. Star Trek Ortegas. It's not Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It's Star Trek Ortegas. Oh, sorry. Wrong episode. We get Terrarium. By far, this is the #1 episode for me for the whole season. You know, like I said, we've seen episodes like this before. Dharma and Shalata Tanagra. Even reminds me a little bit of the Enemy Mine, the old Quaid movie from back in the 80s, you know, with Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr. I was flabbergasted. Me and the missus, she was like, you better give this a 10. I said, I gave it a 9.7, 0.3 off because they waited 3 whole freaking seasons. I love this episode. I loved how the Gorn was able to learn their enemy's language, and it kind of came out of left field that Ortegas was able to make a semi-universal translator, but establishing the fact that she's a bit of a mechanic kind of made sense in the roundabout. I even thought that the shining lights, I was saying this to you, Sean, was, they were in a time shift, and it was, the transporter crew coming down. And then we finally get the shiny folk, which is a great callback to, what we've seen with the Gorn before out at, with the original episode with Kirk out at the Vasquez Rocks. What did you think of this episode? I mean, it gave, Ortegas the whole run. It went through her PTSD. I think it kind of also pushed oh, hey, here's your closure with your PTSD just a little too fast. But yeah, by far, this was the episode for me.
I would have liked to have seen this earlier in the season. I think playing it out here towards the end of everything, I didn't like the episode placement. I would have liked to have seen that wrapped up a little sooner. We kind of felt the Gorn were gone, and then here we are. We were getting another Gorn episode, so that I didn't like. But the way this episode played out, and the character growth that we saw and everything, I did enjoy all that. I just wish we would have gotten it a little sooner.
Mm-hmm. Sean?
I think I agree with that. I really, really enjoyed this episode. I think, like if this was maybe even midway, Joe, like kind of give us a time to breathe with hegemony there, but maybe it was soon. But I mean, I'm in that respect, I'm splitting hairs. Like I really enjoyed this. Melissa Navia is brilliant in this. Lizzie the Gorney is brilliant. Love the practical effects are
Thank you.
fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, she just looks brilliant. I would lift the Metron entirely and take it out. Not needed. Absolutely didn't need the Metron scene at all. That was, and it's a bit like, I think, were you saying, Sammy, as well? Like, it's a bit like we're kind of playing the hits.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't need it. That's and also, I mean, if you cut that and just have the shootout and they beam out, the episode is not affected in the slightest. Doesn't attack. Do you know what I mean? Like, so goes through a wormhole. Wormholes are unpredictable. Lands on the planet. It's a Gorn. Okie dokie. You know, we've had as unlikely things in the past, so that's fine. You know, I wouldn't be worried about that. They both happen to be pilots. Well, yeah, they were both piloting ships. That's fine. That's grand. We have a bit of understanding. Tragedy of an ending. Real gut punch, but it works because we care, because we've spent time on the planet, and it had to. I would argue it had to be La'an. La'an had to be the one that beamed down, because in the documentary episode, La'an does say the only when you're with a Gorn, you kill them first or you run. So at least there is that setup. That is exactly. La'an would fire first. Now, whether she's right or wrong, we obviously know she's wrong because this Gorn, but yeah, makes perfect sense. And then the episode ends with, I'm going to have to, La'an is my friend, she was my friend, I'm going to have to learn how to reconcile this. I thought really, really strong, very, very Star Trek. And as you say as well, yep, I mean, it's the 19th remake of Enemy Mine that Star Trek's done, but that's fine. That's something Star Trek does, and I think it does it quite well. We had the Enemy, we had Darmok, we had Dawn from Enterprise, we had things like Waltz from DS9. You know, it's a trope at this stage, and I think they did a great job.
Right, and Star Trek invented most of them. So
yeah, exactly.
Long, you know?
Technically, Arena back in 1966. If you want to, like, yeah.
Yeah, and again, I will politely disagree. I think that by putting the Metron in, it does make that through line to Arenas. So that's just me, but I can see where you say taking it out. So as of filming right now, folks, Sami has not been privy to the next episode. We tried our best. We charged all our dilithium. So Sami, I'm going to give you the option. Do you want to beam out on here, or do you want to stick around for our thoughts?
No, I'll stick around because, I think there's some conversation about wrapping up the entire season, and I don't think the last episode's really going to change too many of my thoughts on it, depending on how great or even not great it is.
So big shout out to Derek for filling in this all wonderful stuff. Just gave him a little bit of a something to go with. So New Life and New Civilizations, the season finale of season 3. Super Battelle. I'm sorry. This was a season finale that was a huge letdown. This was the Band-Aid rip that did not need to happen. It's like, oh, hey, it's almost like Ortegas is losing a hand and it's back the next episode. Like, give me an episode with it in a cast. Have a sling, have something. But to just come back to Corby and to come back to the Vesda and to, oh, hey, we need 2 ships. And like you said, the Farragut's always right close because, we need to have Kirk around. It's just like, okay, we've put the breadcrumbs here, there, and everywhere, and then here we're just going to mix it all up together in a cereal bowl, and there's your ending. And we've written off Battelle. Oh yeah, by the way, Pike's got to come to terms with his legacy. It's just kind of just there. So where do we go from that? Sean,
I hear you. I did enjoy it. I didn't
say I didn't enjoy it, but it's like, hey, we're scotch taping this together. It was almost like the last season of Doctor Who, how we just kind of threw together the ending.
Less said the better there. But there's bits I liked the whole Inner Light segment. And some of the visuals of this episode is like, oof, that's nice. So there's some good looking stuff in this episode. Battelle's journey in a way, it helps me a bit because we know kind of the question of canon overall, but we know in the menagerie, Pike ends up on Talos 4 with Vina.
Right.
And they made the decision in Discovery to bring Vina back. You had Melissa George playing Vina in If Memory Serves.
Yes.
So that sort of introduces a bit of a question then over, like, something's going to go wrong here, isn't it? And we sort of get our resolution to that. So I did like this sort of, we're going to have our cake and eat it, that this episode does. I feel, this is me personally. He's accepted he's going in the chair. We don't need to do this again. I think Equality of Mercy, I think we got there. But I think we're there. We're there now. He's going in the chair. He's made peace with his future. We don't need another story of this.
The big thing that actually helped bolster that was the gift that was given of them being able to live their lifetime in just those few seconds.
100%.
Total, complete gut punch. I'm sitting there. I had tissues in my hand. I'll be honest.
It was good. It was good. I have to say, I like that. Is it mushy? Yeah. Is it Star Trek? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm no issue with that whatsoever. I did not care for the mind meld. I did not care for the reimagining of what a mind meld does. I did not. Yeah. And also, it was like, kind of, okay. Kirk and Spock. You think you might have a bit of it? That's a moment. Nope. That's a gag. Because we want to do this. We want to do this really cool visual thing. And the visual is brilliant. I really like that. It would have been nice if they didn't put it in the trailer. But anyway, I really like that. And just little bits like that. So that kind of stuff is, did you need to change mind meld lore so that you could have that image? And yeah, so that's one thing. Corby's great. Always great to see Gillian O'Sullivan. Great to see him back. I did think that sadly the character of, I suppose, what do we call him? The Vesda? Or do we call him Gamble? Do you know what I mean?
Vesbal?
That didn't work for me in this episode.
Can we call him Vesbal?
Vesbal. Vesbal. I like that one, Vesbal. Mm-hmm. Me did not work in this episode. I thought it was a little too twirling my mustache. And that for me, it's not the end of the world at all. It's not even the worst thing I've seen this week, but it was a little bit kind of like a bit hard to take seriously there. There was a whole thing with Mbenga that didn't really go anywhere. But again, I mean, I'd watch Babs read the phone book. Do you know what I mean? I'm sorry, to a certain amount of people who are watching this, the phone book is something we used to have in our houses that would have phone numbers in it.
And next to that used to be the Rolodex too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, check you out. Yeah. Ooh, I like that.
The ancient magics. So as far as New Life and the New Civilizations, I think that they tied up season 3 just right. They didn't really lead to a 2-parter to lead into season 4. And I think that's a smart idea. There wasn't a lot of carryover. And that helps to the idea that, going into these last, few episodes, we've got some play to work with. We're not beholden to holding up the torch for the next, year and a half or whenever the next episode comes out. So overall, when it comes to season 3, how did we feel about this in general? I think that there was just a little too much camp, and I think they were just trying too hard. I believe, like I said before, this is the first season with Anson Mount as executive producer. And after seeing his particular episode of Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, highly recommend that episode. He said that, well, what can we try this week? What can we do? I think that they were trying to reinvent the nacelle with what Star Trek could be.
Yeah. I like reinvent the nacelle. I like that. That's good.
You'll find out I'm the best and worst here on our channel for puns.
Pun Trek. I'm here for it. Overall, season 3, obviously, shameless plug aside, ups and downs. When it's good, it was really good. I think Strange New Worlds overall has been a great addition. It hasn't been a sort of, why are we doing this prequel? It's like, no, I see why and where this fits in. I like Strange New Worlds. I like what they're doing. I like the updating it. I like, doing some of the classics and even some of the hits I've enjoyed. If not all of them, some of them. But when it's when it's stumbled a bit is when I think what's taken over is the gag. And what's been said a lot is this is the gimmick season. I think it extends a little bit beyond season 3, but I think season 3 is very symptomatic of, what gimmick are we doing this week? What gimmick are we doing this week? And that's been more important than the story in some of the episodes. Again, so I don't want it to seem like I haven't enjoyed season 3. I just think that there's been more of a mix in this season, certainly than there was in the first 2.
Sammy, what did you think of season 3?
Yeah, it's interesting because Star Trek's very famous overall for really starting to hit its stride when it starts getting into like a season 3 and beyond. Some of some of our favorite shows, Next Generation, Voyager, even Deep Space Nine, they kind of muddled through the first 2 seasons and then really kind of found their stride. Whereas Strange New World came right out of Discovery, just hitting hard, and it's kind of just been on this downward trend. That's not to say there hasn't been quality, but here we are in season 3. You'd like to think that these characters in this story would just be really off and running, and like Sean said, they're doing a lot of greatest hits stuff here, and it seems too soon to be doing a lot of that where they could be really boldly going where no one has gone before.
And that's wherein lies the problem, because we only have 16 episodes left. We're painted into a corner, and that's, can be a help or a hindrance, especially when it comes to the 60 years of lore, like we've mentioned. Where is it? What are the 3 things? And if 3 is too much, just give me your key one. What are the things that you want to see coming out of these last episodes going into season 4, minus the puppet episode, and the half season 5, the tie-up episode?
Well, one thing I really wanted to see, but I would have rather have seen it here, would have been a more significant, larger character death for one of these characters that we know we don't get going forward. But if you do it now in the last season, the last couple episodes, I don't really know if I love that.
So do we want one in the season premiere? Just
I think it's too late. What do you think, Sean? I think it's too late. I think he needed to do it this season.
I say season 4. Just get rid of somebody.
Everyone was like,
I was gone. Bye-bye.
No. Yeah. I think kill someone off, sure, and let us deal with what that feels like.
Yes.
I think if it's even season 4 finale, which again, I think honestly, the 2 that have the biggest swords over their heads are La'an and Ortegas. And not that I'm willing to, there's many ships in the fleet that, we don't check in with their crews. They don't have to die. But I think because everyone else is plot armor.
Even poor Mitchell?
Even Josh, okay, actually, you're right. Let's kill her. Thanks for playing. Now blow up that side of the stage. No. I think, because even as episodic as it is, it would certainly help to sell stakes between now and the end. And I don't want, and they've been quite good at not overly kicking the crap out of the ship, because eventually it has to make sense that they would send this ship on another 5-year mission. So I kind of like that they haven't done too much damage to it, like that they didn't Farragut this ship. Because again, after a certain time, you're like, bit like Star Trek 3. The Enterprise is 20, depending on canon, years old, Captain. She's done her day. We're going to retire her. Character arc, sorry, is the big thing that I want to see. I want to see characters. Smile Time is one of my favorite episodes of Angel. A puppet episode of a series like that, and you're like, how does this work? And it was hilarious. I am not against the idea of a puppet episode. I'm only concerned now because we've had the gimmick season. Is this just going to be he's a puppet now, okay, and the episode's going to be about how they react to him being a puppet? Like, no, why is he a puppet? And what is the point of this? And what is the resolution to this? That's what I want. Character. Give me character arc. I'm easy to please. Apparently I'm easy to annoy, but also I'm easy to please. Give me character arc and I will be happy for the next 16 episodes.
My big thing is like I've said, if especially when you're playing with a show like this, if you're going to get that through line from Stranger Worlds to Kirk's Enterprise, I want to know how, and I want you to just write it in a way that makes sense. You got to play with it, have a little artistic license. I'm down. One big thing I would love to see, because I think they'd still be kicking around, I would love a T'Pol cameo. You know, at this point, she's about 170, so she is definitely pushing that old age for a Vulcan. But maybe she comes in and helps Spock, you know, push back his human side again. So we get more of a Nimoy style Spock later down the road. These are just the nitpicky things. I wouldn't mind, and this is again just nitpicky stuff. Let's give Scotty his vest. You know, let's throw it in there. I don't want to see Bones in here. Like, you know, I'd like to see I'd like to see Uhura maybe, you know, step up a little bit more and not be used as such a junior officer. Obviously we know how writing was back in the 60s, and you know, we Nichelle Nichols got what she got. And again, we applaud her for her performance, you know, but I would like to see, you know, Uhura have a little bit more. There's just again, just some little things that I find, like, I never could understand the whole, especially in this series, the idea of, well, oh, we call Una, and then we haven't heard Chin Riley since, you know, at Aspera, and then again when Lon and her were sitting having a drink, you know, because of socks, that we heard her last name used again. You know, it's not, you know, Commander Chin Riley or this, that. There's a certain level of military bearing that is very, very fluid in this show, and I guess that's just me nitpicking.
You know,
You know,
speaking of that, I'd like to see someone get promoted.
that's exactly. I think her definitely could be promoted and not have the Ensign Kim syndrome.
I'd like to see Una get her own ship.
It would be a great opportunity to write her off. What I'd love to see with Una more so is for makeup to figure out what the hell they're doing with their eyebrows.
There was a few very Vulcan episodes.
Oh, not just her. La'an had it too, and you know, I was just very, very confused.
We live in a world where we like strong eyebrows, okay, Spock.
Strong eyebrows, they cut sharper than Spock's ears. Come on. But there's a lot of things going on, and we're looking forward to seeing it. And you know, again, Sammy and Sean, I can't thank you so very much for joining me today on here with this extended episode of TV Talk. It's been an absolute blast. Sammy, I mean, can you tell everybody where they can find you aside from Thursday nights here on Nerd Initiative with the Wrestling Night Live dropping in from that top rope?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm live every Thursday night on all the Nerd Initiative platforms talking professional wrestling. Sean, feel free to jump in if you want to drop that elbow on some opponents. You know, if you're feeling like it. Otherwise, you know, I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram as Cosplay by Sammy. That's me. Feel free to look me up and see what I'm doing.
And Sean, thank you so very much for phoning in all the way across the pond. It is an absolute pleasure to get a chance to chat with you. We've dropped enough subtle hints, but where can we find you online?
So where do you work?
Subtle? let me see if I can go back and redo the whole thing in a try. I'm on TrekCulture. We're on all the socials. We're obviously on YouTube. We have our weekly episodes, our weekly podcasts. Obviously, as this drops as well, we will be 1 week into Star Trek Can. So yes, which of course will have its debut episode on September the 8th, or has had its debut episode on September the 8th. Wibbly wobbly timey wimey. We'll have weekly updates with that. We're on all the socials as well. I'm on all the socials at Sean Ferrick, so I'm easy to find, and everything is pretty much linked to everything else. So you find one, you've pretty much found everything. We have opinions, but we also like to have fun.
Exactly. And obviously, folks, you can find me Off the Cuff Tom anywhere on the internet. Obviously, here every single Monday night as far as Play for Keeps. Also part of the Nerd Initiative Bullpen. Turn a page. You can find me everywhere. So once again, thank you all so very much. It was a pleasure having you both on. I think it's very obvious for me to say, live long and prosper. Thank you again. And as always, we will catch you in the next one.